Hey, everybody. Welcome to the UGA Sports Live podcast. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I'm joined by Jake Roos, Dayne Young, Trent Smallwood, and whoever else wants to watch. You know, you are part of our show, even though you're not on screen, although it would probably be better if you were. Looking at this ragtag group of social distancers, anybody would be an improvement. Hey, but shout out to our friends and our family, if you will, the people who sponsor this show, Classic City Eats on Baxter, where we would like to be right now. We'd love to be at Classic City Eats, hitting those folks up, but we are all at our homes. Although maybe next week or in a couple of weeks, we'll be at Classic City Eats. So, but shout out to them. Shout out to Athens Ford. They are still selling cars out there. They're selling new cars, selling used cars. They're doing a great job. They have great financing deals to help you through these tough times. Big shout out to our friends, Aaron Overhead Doors. They are taking care of people's houses, people who are stuck at home, who need their doors fixed, who need doors replaced, who need doors put into houses that are being built. Aaron Overhead Doors is doing that. Of course, Your Pie, they're feeding us. They're feeding everybody. They're doing a great job. And, of course, our friends at Academy Brewing Company, who are doing a wonderful job making good beer and taking care of people in the community. So shout out to all of them. I want to jump right into recruiting, guys. I mean, I know that we have a ton of questions that came in via Twitter. We have some questions on the board. We have some questions. I'm sure if anyone has one and you're watching this show on YouTube, put it in the comments. Dane will ask it to us here in a bit. But if I want to get right into recruiting, guys, because of all the things that are up in the air, recruiting does not seem to be. Georgia has been picking up big recruits. And then Sunday, they got Elijah Jeudy. I think that was a huge get. Jake, tell me what Georgia's getting in defensive end Elijah Jeudy.
Yeah, this was a kid that I mentioned in one of the articles we did the other day. It kind of progressed really quickly with Jeudy. He was a kid who picked up his offer mid-January, visited about 2 weeks later, and basically told me, hey, since that time, I knew that I was going to go to Georgia. He said it was just kind of how they treated everybody, how they went about their business. Those endorsements from Darren Swift and DeAndre Swift and Mark Webb kind of signing off on everything. I think it all just came together for Georgia. It was kind of a perfect storm for them. So, big pickup for Georgia. I like the kid a lot. I think that he's a very interesting athlete. The guy that I think that he could kind of end up being like at the next level. This is a high expectation, certainly, but kind of DeAndre Walker. I think he's a similar body. Maybe not quite as ripped, but very few people are as DeAndre Walker. But Elijah pretty much is, a similar frame, 6'2.5", 230. Guy who's going to be able to bend the edge a little bit for you if you need that. He can play with a hand in the ground, but he's also got the speed and the know-how to be able to drop into coverage. So really versatile pickup for Georgia, and a guy that can do a little bit of it all. Not surprised that Dan Lanning targeted a guy like this early on because, like I said, he can do a little bit of everything. Trent?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, you see his speed and athleticism on the edge. It's just impressive. He can get to the quarterback. I don't think he's quite as versatile as Mikael Sherman was last year, because I think Sherman can go inside and play inside linebacker, and I don't think that is the best part of Jeudy's game. But I think Jeudy's going to be an excellent edge defender, whether it's outside linebacker or putting his hand in the dirt if he puts the weight on. So I think it's a big pickup.
Yeah, I think overall you got to be. I mean, I think Georgia's got to be pleased also to, and I mentioned this in the what it means, what's next piece, but this is really a testament to Georgia kind of sowing those national recruiting seeds early on. And you're kind of starting to see that all come full circle. He was very well aware of what Mark Webb did and what DeAndre Swift did. He said, for those guys to get where they were, they had to leave here. And so it was something that really impacted him to see them do that. I think that you're just going to continue to see that trend with Georgia recruiting moving forward because those guys, like I said, have made such a priority of sowing those seeds around the country.
Wasn't he supposed to originally announce like months from now?
Yes, he was going to announce July 14th, I believe, was the original date. And really, that was what he was saying, like, last Tuesday. So we were, it all came together real quick. Sunday was his birthday, so he decided to go ahead and get it out of the way on his birthday. I think, too, wanted to go ahead and get his spot. He seemed like a kid who knew where he wanted to be. His family seemed like they knew where he wanted to be. Certainly, Dad seemed like he had his opinions about Georgia, and maybe
tell us what Cliff Jeudy. Tell us what Cliff Jeudy had to say about Georgia. Now, you interviewed him a week ago, right? Because it was Monday we had the story, and then the following Sunday the kid commits. And after reading that story when you interviewed Cliff Jeudy, Elijah Judy's father, if you'd gone into the future cast and put in, Elijah Judy's going to Georgia, no one would have been shocked, just because the way the dad was raving about Athens, raving about the University of Georgia. Give me that perspective. What do you have the quote in front of you, or what his dad said, and paraphrase it? Because that last quote, the story just kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I can kind of paraphrase for you. I mean, essentially, one of the big things that stood out for the interview was he said, "Look, Athens, I think it would be a hell of a place for my son to land." He said, I think it would be great. Talked about how close he was with Dan Lanning personally, how the two of them had kind of forged the relationship together and had a chance to, really get to know each other away from football. It's more as you would expect during this time, getting to know each other on a personal level, talking about family, talking about, who they are away from the game. And I think that was really impactful for him. And he really he said, and made mention of Georgia having systems in place for basically any problem a kid had. There was somebody that they could go talk to about it. Georgia football had somebody. If you were having a problem with your girlfriend, Georgia football had a relationship counselor. Essentially, they had people for each and every scenario that you could kind of identify. And I think that rung true with both of them overall. And you mentioned, what his dad was saying too. I think it was one of the interesting things from that piece was him talking about how Georgia interviewed the family essentially as well, and said, Georgia wanted to make sure that it was a fit, not only from the kids' end, but from mom and dad's end as well. And they want to get not only the right kind of player in here, but the right kind of families to represent the Georgia program. And I think they felt like they got one in the Judys.
Yeah, Trent, you mentioned Mikhail Sherman, and when I think of the family aspect of this, I go back to some high-profile situations where Georgia, we knew about it, but we couldn't report it because you don't throw a kid under the bus. But there have been some situations where Georgia's offered a kid, did some digging into it, and I really wish that Kirby Smart would let us talk to some of his investigators. There are people on that staff who go to the high schools who look into a kid's character. They'll test the grades. They go to the front office, they pull up the kid's academic profile, and they see where they stand, what grades are needed, stuff like that. They'll talk to the coaches, find out what kind of type of player he is. But they also have people who, when they, these are assistant coaches, but sometimes it's somebody else who will investigate the player in relation to their teachers, right. Pastor, YMCA instructor from 2 years ago. I mean, they look into these kids, and sometimes they find some stuff they don't like, and they move on. The kid has an offer, but he doesn't have the ability to commit. We've seen this happen over the years, and this wasn't just a Kirby Smart thing. I'm just saying I wish he would let us talk to some of those people because they have some great stories there. You made a good point in the Jeudy thing about them interviewing the family, and the family felt like they kind of went through it, and the coaches had made a point that we want to bring in kids of good character, kids without emotional baggage. I think of Mikhail Sherman and the way his entire family sort of committed to UGA. I think of DeAndre Swift's dad. He's at every game. Mark Webb's folks moving down at every game. You think about the support system that some of these kids have. It seems like Georgia has gotten to the point where they can be a little bit pickier, a little more selective, and say, okay, this kid is a great DN, this kid's a great wide receiver. What's his family life like? What is going to give us the least amount of drama? What's going to give him a good support network to help him get through it? I mean, I think the good support network Notoria Johnson has, I think of Julian Rochester, I think of the Froms, with their situation, parents being very much involved in that. It's just, you just go down the list. I don't want to say good family, bad family, but good support network, good support, because it's not always family. It's the pastors and people around him. Trent, am I just making that up, or is that a trend you're seeing? Because you're much closer to recruiting than I am. I'm just kind of 30,000 feet level.
No, I mean, that's 100% true. And I think you saw that back in or January when Georgia elected to take Dejon Edwards and stop recruiting a 5-star running back. So
yeah, that's true.
So Georgia does their homework, and I mean, there's been several players in the past that wanted to commit to Georgia but couldn't because when them coaches go to those in-home visits, whether it's December or whenever, and that they spend 12 hours with you, they're going to spend a couple hours with you at school, and then they're going to go ask people about you, and then they're going to have their in-home dinner with you. So they got 4 or 5 hours of free time in there that they're just asking about your character and stuff like that. So you better be able to prove to that staff that your character's good, everything's good outside of your grades and outside of football, because that's what they're going to be judging when it comes down to those final couple spots.
Well, and the reality of it is, too, as you mentioned, I mean, there are a lot of great football players around the country. I mean, there are thousands of guys who we have in the 3-star and above range, which means that we consider them to be Division I players. What separates you from somebody else? Yes, you may be a good football player, but if you're bringing all this baggage to the table, and it's going to end up impacting us down the line, do we end up risking our jobs, our livelihoods, our reputations as recruiters and coaches, and the reputation of this program for one guy just because he's, a tick faster on the 40-yard dash? I think more often than not, people would be surprised to find out that a lot of the times you don't sacrifice a lot of that. And I think that that's true not only of Georgia, but of most schools, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, you say there's a lot of players like that, but there's not a lot of 5-stars.
Sure.
There's, I think we average around 32 a year. And that's not to say that the 4-stars are terrible. You can win many a championship with a ton of 4-stars. You can win it with 3-stars, but I think that if you are some of the smaller schools, you may not have as big a luxury of saying, this kid likes us, but I just don't know about, he's got some emotional baggage. He's immature. He's gifted. But if we can land him, we got to land him. Georgia, the last 3 recruiting cycles, has been number 1 in the nation, and they've turned away kids that 3 years prior to that, Georgia would have killed for. So I think that, it kind of goes hand in hand, and they're allowed to be picky because they're recruiting so bloody well. So,
I think they've seen kind of they've seen the fallout from recruiting guys who don't necessarily fit with their system. And the guy who comes to mind always when I think about this is Brenton Cox. I mean, he kind of came in, had his situation, whatever it was. And for all of the incredible talent that Brenton has, and that's undeniable. I mean, he's one of the best pass rushers I've ever seen in person. But his demeanor, his approach, it didn't fit with what Georgia wanted to do. And they were forced to cut bait, and that becomes a big public story and not one that you necessarily want out there. So I think that I think over the course of the years, they probably, had a little bit of pause and said, all right, let's start narrowing in. And like you said, the ability to be more selective over that time.
I think it's more than just the ability to be more selective, though, because when you're recruiting area, I guess, which is now national, it's completely national, and you could say it has been for a few years, but to me, if you go back 2 years and 3 months ago, that's the Rose Bowl against Oklahoma. Georgia's national footprint expanded that night to where everyone saw what they did against Oklahoma in primetime, in overtime, and said, oh, that's cool. I want to be a part of that because it was cool. It was fun. It was one of those classic college football games. But from that point on, you have the opportunity with more recruits than Georgia did at one point in time. But that also requires more discipline because there's going to be some bad apples in there too. And all it takes is one situation to send you back down the other way in terms of the momentum that you create from a situation like that Rose Bowl. I mean, you look at a team like Texas, they haven't been able to recover from what they were a decade ago in a decade. How do you make it happen? It's hard.
Well, and meanwhile, too, you've got, looking at another SEC program that's run into a problem like this, you have the situation with Chris Steele down at Florida and, the accusations against his roommate. And he said, well, they wouldn't let me move out. Well, you better believe stuff like that gets weaponized on the recruiting trail. Coaches are saying, look, they put him in this situation. They'd do the same thing to you. you can't afford to have those kind of specters lingering over your head, I think, in that recruiting game.
Absolutely. I mentioned, the good support network, but the way avoiding drama is also goes hand in hand with the, hey, we want a good support network to help this kid out. But at the same time, I don't need this kid's ass in the headlines. That's you point out, we'd have to do an R-rated show to talk about some of the negative recruiting that has been used against the University of Georgia. That's one of the reasons Kirby doesn't like us talking to recruits, doesn't like us talking to family members of recruits. He's just worried that anything that's said will somehow be weaponized against the program. And when you're the top dog 3 years in a row in recruiting, yes, they'll make other teams will rip on your jerseys. They will rip on your any headline. Any kid that said he doesn't like it, Kirby doesn't like his guys on social media, because you can take rap lyrics out of context and say, see, this kid's unhappy. See, he's bitching about Kirby Smart. You need to come here. And we've seen how people negatively recruit against Alabama. We've seen how they negatively recruit against Clemson. It happens, and now you were in that same ballpark. As Dayne's pointing out, the people that have just absolutely wallowed in the coaching change at Ohio State, they just loved it and threw it against every kid that Ohio State was looking at, and they were pretty deft to get around that, but it was a tough situation. So, it's the negative recruiting. And I think to your point, Jake, when you talk about Brenton Cox, that's that tough scenario. You bring in a kid who has some issues, but he is gifted, and it is tough. But if you can't get another Brenton Cox, you take him with his issues. Now all of a sudden you can get 2 Brenton Coxes a year, maybe not quite that much, but you can get another Brenton Cox to replace him. But if you're Florida and your recruiting hasn't been on par, you take a guy that could be a locker room issue. And I will say this: I was told by the parent of one of the defensive ends, outside linebacker guys, they said that the first day after Brenton Cox left practice, when he left to go left the Georgia team, they said they had one of the best practices in months, because he was just such a negative, everything sucks guy during practice. And when he was gone, you lost a fantastic defensive end. But the players that were there were twice as happy. Now, granted, some of the guys were friends with him. Again, and this is all hearsay. I'm not saying that this is exactly what happened, but this is what I was told by a parent of one of the players who said that it was just night and day. That when I was talking about the defensive end room, the running back room, so that room felt like they had a load taken off their shoulders. It's not addition by subtraction because you're losing a great player, but if the camaraderie is higher, and the morale is higher, then maybe the play is better. Who knows? I want to give a big shout out. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it too. I think that you're seeing more and more, though, teams really taking things like that into account. Like you mentioned, you're seeing some of these guys end up going to, I think, somewhat lower tier programs in some cases because they're more willing to roll the dice on guys like this, whereas, the big dogs just aren't going to do it as much anymore because they have the ability to be selective and realize that maybe the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
And also, if you know that, hey, we can take that guy who Rivals has him ranked as a 4-star, but he's higher on our board, and we think that we can coach him up, well, then you don't have to worry about it. I want to give a big shout out. If you notice, I'm wearing a Cole Haynes Irish Pub shirt. Cole Haynes, and I have some shirts for you guys. These are our friends down in Jacksonville. So one of the best Irish pubs in the country, one of the best places to eat when you're in Jacksonville. Check out Cole Haynes. A friend of mine sent these to me. I will pass them out to you guys whenever we can get back together again. Big shout out to Cole Haynes. I know that they are struggling right now. They are still doing takeout. So if you're in the Jacksonville area, you're a Georgia, Florida person, goes to all those games, you live in Jacksonville, or you're just visiting Jacksonville, hit up Cole Haynes. One of the best meals you will have in your entire life. And the big shout out to our friends, Kyle McClung, huge Georgia fan, maybe one of the biggest fans I know, for sending us some T-shirts. So thank you. You guys would have them if we could get together. But once we do, we'll get them out to you. I also want to take a quick break to give a shout out to our friends at Athens Ford. They are still doing the 0% APR financing for 84 months. So that's for approved buyers. 7 years on a new car. You really can't beat that. They have some of their older cars. You can get the 2019 F-150 for 84 months off. 84 months at 0% financing. It's just insane. And of course, they have the deferred payments. I think they were doing that up for 120 days. Can't beat that. And they also have a $500 medical professionals bonus cash. So if you are a medical professional and you need a good vehicle because you're on the front lines, fighting this war for us, swing out by Athens Ford. They're going to take care of you. They're going to give you $500 off right off the bat. And I guarantee you they will make the best deal you've ever seen in your life because they want this to be over. They know what you're going through. So they're trying to take care of you. So Georgia fans, take care of Athens Ford. They take care of us, and they're trying to take care of our frontline professionals. And we really appreciate the job they do. Jake, you want to get some questions from the board, please?
Yeah. We got a couple here today that I wanted to hop in on from our guys over on the vault and the vent. Beach Dog with a good question. Beach Dog 20 says, where did the Dogs look for an inside linebacker if Barrett Carter goes to Clemson? Also, who do you see returning punts next year? I think that to touch on the first one, my inclination is to go with Smell Monday out of Paulding County. I think he's probably destined for the inside and probably the guy who will take over for that long, rangy guy like you've seen with Quay Walker throughout his tenure at Georgia. So I think that that would be the first place I would point if I were looking at possible targets on that inside linebacker spot. Trent, anybody jump off the page to you?
I mean, not really. I think it's Barrett Carter and Munden as far as those two, unless you took a guy like Somerville and shifted him inside, but I don't see that either. If you took Somerville and put him, but right now I think that's the focus. You got the Chaz Chambliss up in
Carrollton.
Yeah, Carrollton. My mind won't blank. But yeah, I think Carter and Munden are the two focus points right now.
Yeah, and the thing is, like we said too, Georgia has recruited a lot of these guys that can kind of shift inside and outside. A guy like Dallas Turner is a great pass rusher, but it's not out of the question. I don't think that he could end up on the inside, just depending on how things kind of sorting themselves out. So I think that they'll take best available players, and as they've shown, they can kind of make that work. But there's no question in my mind, Barrett Carter, top of the board when it comes to the linebacker position.
No doubt.
And what was the other question?
Who's going to return punts this year?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah,
Logan Gray.
Oh, damn. Let me give that one a shot because I think that a lot of that depends on whether or not Dominic Blaylock is ready to go. Because he did return to do it last year. If he's not, my first inclination is going to be Kieris Jackson.
Could be Stetson Bennett for going back at quarterbacks.
I don't think he has a shimmy. I do like a wide receiver back there. That's just from years past. I think Dominic Blaylock will be great at it. What do you guys think about James Cook maybe getting back there?
Well, that's what I was wondering, if any of the running backs will get involved, because it wasn't on punt, but on kickoff, you'd see Brian Herrien back there sometimes, or even James Cook. And obviously we've seen
Zamir White was back there a couple times too.
Yeah, Zamir White's played back there. Even DeAndre Swift has done it a time or two. So we know that Kirby Smart trusts on kickoff. What about punt game? And then there's also Demetrius Robertson, who we know is dynamic.
Absolutely. To me, though, it's not so much about who's going to get a big return as who's going to make the right decision. It's all about decision-making processes. I mean, we make fun of Logan Gray and
if you're thinking about Rhett McGowan, I'm all over this. I have so many Rhett McGowan takes.
Oh my God, I'm trying to think of before him.
There is not a better person to fair catch a football than Rhett McGowan.
God, I can't think of a guy's name. It's going to drive me crazy. Anyway, there have been some guys back there who, Georgia fans would just be frustrated because they see the slow-footed, no-shake guy go out there to catch the punt, and they just like, oh my God, we're never going to put up a return, and they're in punt safe and stuff like that, and all of a sudden, just that groan that would come over the crowd, when it's like, oh, there goes Logan, he's going to fair catch it, but if you understand how Kirby Smart coaches it all, it's all about percentages. It's all about, he does not take huge risks. It's all about ball security. So, you have a guy that can go out there and make the right decision when, he's got his heels on the 10-yard line or his heels on the 20. Am I going to let this go over me, or am I going to catch it? Or am I going to fair catch it? Do I have enough room to make a move? It's all about security. And I used to be like, oh man, you're killing yourself. You're not setting up anything. You have no chance if you won't take a risk. But now I get it. With that great defense, you need somebody who makes good decisions out there. And I think that's one of the reasons Dominic Blaylock got out there so quickly. Kyrus Jackson, is a very bright guy. He has good instinctive ability right off the bat. I love to having guys who played a little quarterback, who had to, the Mecole Hardmans of the world who were like, hey, if do I pitch or do I keep it on this one? Now remember, he kept it a lot, but there were times that he would pitch it. And again, it's that somebody who can make a split-second decision, who can see the guys coming down, look up, gauge how much time he has, how soon they're going to get there, whether or not he's going to get killed, and make the right decision. So you take out their physical gifts and you look at it's a cerebral position, unlike, say, maybe a kick return, which is, hey, the ball landed on the 5, I got to return it, So
I do think that in a normal season, some of these true freshmen would have an opportunity. I just think it's going to be really hard for them to gain that kind of trust in a very short amount of time leading up to a season.
Yeah, I could see a kid like Arian Smith getting back there, a sure-handed guy with the speed. But, yeah, I'm not sure James Cook is the answer back there on punt returns. I'm not sure that he would – I think Kirby Smart would probably flip the switch before that happened in that head.
I was just thinking
I like Kyrus as a possibility too.
Yeah,
I think
Kyrus would be a good option.
Did he do it last year?
I think he did once or twice. Yeah, but
These players returned punts last season, and it was Kyrus Jackson, Dominic Blaylock, and Tyler Simmons.
There you go.
Yeah, Kyrus had two returns for 11.
I think Kyrus is really sharp. I think he's got that mental edge that you're looking for. A guy who's going to be able to get you some tough yards on the ground as well. Probably not that burner like Demetrius Robertson or a guy like Arian Smith is, but a guy who I think can play smart with it and advance the ball in certain situations.
I guess I was thinking James Cook because he had 4 kickoff returns, so that's why.
And he bobbled 2 of them.
Don't bring the facts into this.
In the comments, Matthew Daniel says that Reggie Davis always made him nervous returning punts.
Yeah. That's fair. But at the same time, he tore off a few too, so. God,
longest reception in Georgia history. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think you're right. That crazy Tennessee game that will that gives me itches across my back. Remember that game? That was nuts.
Living infamy.
Yeah. Before we get to that question, I'm going to hit up one here from Twitter. It says, this is from Doug Bulldog 1968 on Twitter. He says, it seems like Kirby's going after a lot of tight ends in the last couple cycles. Is because of offensive changes or lack of quality tight ends to recruit? Trent, you just had a story about how many tight ends we could take. Give me your thoughts on this.
So go over that question one more time.
No problem. It seems like Kirby is going after a lot of tight ends in the last couple of classes.
Okay.
Is this because of an offensive change or lack of quality tight ends to recruit?
I mean, I think a lot has to do with the uncertainty of what they have on the roster. I mean, the more options you have is the better chances you have to hit on one. Because you have they've taken a lot of chances on guys. Fitzpatrick, he was always a skinny rail, and you never knew how he was going to develop as far as weight-wise.
Luke Ford or Brett Seaver?
The one coming off ACL. Man, my mind's going blank today.
Ryland.
I mean, you took a risk right there. He's coming off ACL. Then you take a late risk on Scyther, and then of course, you hit on 5-star this past class, but I think there's just a lot of uncertainty in that room. I mean, you got a redshirt sophomore in Fitzpatrick, and you got then 2 redshirt freshmen that you just don't know what you're going to get. And I think that's the reason why they went out and got Trey McKitty from Florida State, because it's either that or you're counting on a true freshman to come in and who's probably the most athletic, I would say, of the tight ends. And so McKitty kind of brings that safe haven to that group. And I think you'll see him take one or two more in this class, just to add on top of that.
Good point. I don't think we know.
I think that too, that it's a position that's become so highly coveted, and there are so few guys who can do it at the truly elite level. And if you can get one of those guys, then that's the ultimate goal, obviously. But last year you had 3 guys, and Georgia recruited each one of them, a tooth and nail to the end: Darnell Washington, Theo Johnson, and Eric Gilbert. But most of your tight ends, we're kind of in that in-between stage, I think, where people want them to be these large athletic pass catchers, but a lot of them are still converted offensive tackles that were just the biggest kids on their team in a lot of cases. So, finding those really special guys, I think, is why you see Kirby and company try to throw out all of these offers that you've seen to the tight end groups here recently.
I think you see the positions converge a bit too, where if you're 6'5" and athletic in high school and you want to catch passes, you're probably going to be a wide receiver rather than a tight end, so you don't have to do all the blocking.
Yeah, I think the spread offense in the high school game is taking you see a 6'5", 270-pound guy as a coach, he's either playing offensive tackle or defensive end. So I think the spread offense going to the 3-4 wide receiver sets has kind of limited the tight end production over the years. I mean, they still flex their tight ends out, like Eric Gilbert's flexed out. But you don't see many Eric Gilberts Darnell Washingtons of the world either. You got 6'7", 271. I mean, that's just.
I mean, he's the size of LeBron James out there.
Yeah, good point.
Next
question. This question comes from Matthew Daniel on Twitter. He says, if Amarius Mims commits to Georgia, then who were some guys who would potentially follow him to Athens because of his commitment? Didn't he say something like, I got an army coming with me when I commit, or something like that?
He did. Yeah, he did say that. And, I think the thing about Mims that's going to be interesting will be whether or not he really sticks to that planned commitment date he's got. Because if he really does go in October, then it will be interesting to see kind of some of the dominoes that fall behind him. But it's going to be interesting to see, in a summer where it doesn't look like you're going to be having the prospect camps, where it doesn't look like you're going to be having the on-campus visits. Probably no 5-star challenge. I'm just spitballing. I don't know that for sure. The opening, I haven't heard anything about that. So, it's going to be a very interesting year from that perspective, because he's not going to have as many chances, I think, to forge bonds with some of these guys that he doesn't already know.
That's a good point. I could see him trying to bring some guys from the state of Georgia, but
right.
And it's not to say that Georgia has tapped out, all the kids they want in state. There are still a number of big in-state targets. And 2 weeks ago when we had Trent on, when I said, hey, who's the next recruit's going to be? You're like, look at the in-state guys. And sure enough, 2 in-state guys committed. Then a third one did. I know Georgia still has some in-state targets, but that's a good point. A lot of times when you find out about, I can't tell you the number of interviews we've done over the years where someone says, me and so-and-so, a guy 3 states over, other side of the country, we want to play together. We roomed together at the opening. We hung out all week together at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge. We've gone to these camps together. I've known him forever. But you're right. Without forging those relationships, it's just kind of it has almost the same effect as a coach does, reaching out to a guy on social media, not face-to-face, hanging out, doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, you're counting on connections you've already made, essentially. It's just, it's like the kids who visited certain campuses and haven't had a chance to get on others. It just kind of is what it is. Obviously, those schools are going to have an advantage with that kid because they've got the in-person connection. And I think that right now you've got to be relying on the relationships you built rather than trying to think of, how can I forge these new ones without the ability to, spend time with these guys or whatever. You've got to be focused on, all right, who are the great players I know and who are some of the guys that I can work on. Terrence Ferguson strikes me as a guy that Amarius Mims could really maybe swing a little bit.
I think proximity plays a decent role in that, because if you're at one of these Atlanta schools and you want to go meet up and work out with a guy that's also being recruited, that's possible. But this is Cochran, Georgia. And I don't say that with a demeaning tone. I grew up 30 minutes from there. My grandparents lived 10 minutes from there, but it's just not close to a lot of other schools. So if you pick out one, it's probably Peach County. That's about 45 minutes down the road. That may be a connection he can make in this time. Otherwise, a lot of these relationships are virtual, social media or Zoom or whatever it may be. It's just hard to really create those football bonds because he's not going to be working out with a lot of people right now.
I had heard he was close with the running back, Brown.
Cody Brown?
Yeah.
But I've heard you. Okay.
I mean, how true that is, I don't know.
Well, no, I'm just wondering if but Georgia's already got Lavassier Carroll. If Cody Brown wants to come, does Georgia take him and not the
I think you wait on Edwards, man. I think that's their plan right now. And I mean, you probably need to get some clarity on that by the end of the summer, lest you find yourself in a Zach Evans, Tank Bigsby, scenario once again. So, I would find out on Edwards, but I do think that he's the top guy on the board and has been for some time.
Wouldn't you think Donovan Edwards, with Ohio State already taken 2, that it would be kind of down to, I mean, right now it looks like Georgia versus Michigan for that?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think that's the battle that you're looking at right now. And really it just comes down to, does he want to stay home or does he want to come to a program that, he kind of has a pretty decent understanding by everything we read from him of the tradition at running back, the recent stars that they put out there, and that's sort of what it boils down to for the kids. So tough decision for him, but whoever gets him, you're getting a hell of a player. That's no doubt.
Would they have to abbreviate his first name on his jersey with 2 letters since there's already a Dayne Edwards? So like a D-O period or a D-A period?
I didn't think about that. That's a good. That's an interesting point. At some point,
see the PA guy comes up with that. The guy that has to do all the calling over PA, the one that's done baseball, volleyball, what else?
One of them will probably just change their name or hyphenate it and add another last name. Or, I mean, we see that happen all the time. So it would definitely, if they came in, they were like, we're going to have to do this. One of them just be like, nah, you know what? I'll tack Smith onto it and we'll be good to go.
I want to give a big shout out to our friends over at Aaron Overhead Doors for sponsoring the show and the website. I know that they've been busy. They've been doing a lot in the Beaufort community to help them out, to help out people around them. But I know we talk about how they're located in Beaufort, but they also service Alpharetta, Gainesville, Johns Creek, North Atlanta, Sandy Springs, Suwanee, Dunwoody, Duluth, Tequila coming, and many, many, many more places. So when we talk about Northeast Georgia, kind of that Beaufort area, don't hesitate to call them. If you're in Atlanta, you're on the south side of Atlanta, they do drive, and gas is really cheap right now. They will come to you. So do not hesitate to call our friends at Aaron Overhead Doors, AARON. And I know I say it really fast, but as fast as a Southerner could speak, but it's Aaron Overhead Doors. It's not the big overhead door company that you see all the TV ads for. This is a family-owned business. They do great residential work. They do great commercial work. They have specials on. And if you go to AaronOverheadDoors.com, click on the gallery and see some of the unique stuff they do. They do very creative stuff. They're not just putting in your standard garage door. They do artwork. They do amazing stuff that makes your house, people think of, garage door. They think it is functional. These guys do some form over function. They will make your house look better with a artistic artistic garage door. They do some amazing work. They are very creative, and they're actually, they moved offices and they're putting in some stuff that you won't see anywhere else. So, think about it. Ryan Lucia, he actually has a podcast about garage doors that everybody in the industry listens to, and it's growing by leaps and bounds. Won't be long before I'm asking him for tips on how to grow ours. So big shout out to Ryan Lucia and his, because he's such an innovator in the industry. So big shout out to Aaron Overhead Doors and for them taking care of us. Give us another question from the board, please.
Lump Dog with a good one here. Roddy, I'm going to throw this one to you. He says, does the state reopening change anything with the team?
with the team? No, not yet. But because it's such a small opening. I mean, it's not.
They're going bowling.
It's not. Yeah. If Kirby wants to head on bowling, but you're not allowed to have any of these kids back on campus, so all the player activities right now are still shut down. You can't have them in for workouts and stuff like that. Now they did increase the amount of time. What it was like 2 hours, 4 hours. I think it's up to 8 hours now. So they're doing a lot of meetings. I think most of the position guys do their meetings in the afternoon, because I think they told the guys, hey, do your schoolwork, from like 8 to 1 or whatever. And then from 2 to 5, 3 to 5, something like that, we're going to have team meetings. And, they get on there with the video and they share it and they show all the different, the same stuff that they would do in the meeting room. They're doing that. But I don't think opening up, I mean, they can get a haircut?
Yeah, I couldn't see anything that it could change unless – Kirby which I wouldn't put past Kirby to be converting the indoor facility into a bowling alley right now and saying, oh, hey, we're just having some disco bowling over here. Mandatory attendance required. And, while you're here, why don't you pick up that 45-pound plate over there and walk around with it?
They bowl with them. The ball's about 160 pounds.
That's the new Scott Sinclair workout, right?
I tell you, some of those kids could juggle those bowling balls without breaking a sweat. So they're strong kids. But I don't see anything changing for now. And there is, I mean, not to get into the politics of it, but you hope that the kids take care. I know that Kirby's his biggest fear is that any of his players get sick. So now that in most places, it looks like the hospitals are not overwhelmed. So the idea of the shutdown was to, not overwhelm the hospitals if they are not being overwhelmed. I know Albany's there are some hot spots that have really bad, but if you don't feel like you're going to do it, they're slowly and incrementally starting to reopen some places. I think Kirby, and this is just a guess, but it would not shock me to say, Kirby, to go to these guys and say, look, some of these places are opening, but I do not want you to get sick. Be very careful. You got to know Ron Course is going to be like, look, every time you leave the house, I want you wearing gloves, a mask, PPE equipment. When you get back, I want a video of you washing your hands, send it to me, because Ron does not want any of his charges getting sick. So my only consideration or thing that would change is maybe UGA emphasizes even more so to these kids, hey, with some stuff opening, you have to be more careful. It's just, again, complete guess on my part. But just knowing how Kirby and Ron Corson work, I think, and how concerned they are for the health of their players, it would surprise me if they have in one of their team meetings, hey, okay, this is opening. Do you absolutely have to go there? And if you do, here's what you do when you come back.
Well, a lot of this decision is not going to be UGA's. It's going to be the University System of Georgia, who UGA has been taking a lot of leadership from. But then it's going to be the NCAA as well.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, I think what you have to listen for if you're looking for an announcement on when the team will change is when the university system announces something for the students, because they're going to be hard pressed to require those guys to return when students are.
I don't think they're going to be allowed. We're used to them bringing the team together before the students arrive in fall. I don't think that will happen this year. I think you'll have to use summer classes will have to be open or something like that. You have to allow people back on campus before you can allow them back into the weight room or back into anything like that. Just from what I've heard.
I agree. Here's one I want to hit real quick. Throw to Trent. Dabfa2269 on the board says, David Daniels committed, and I like where we stand with James Williams, Tony Grimes, and Nyland Green. Who do you think that Georgia might prioritize to fill out a fifth and final DB spot in 2021? Anybody that jumps off the page to you, Trent?
Let's see. That coronavirus brain, man.
Adam Friedman did a ranking the contenders today on Isaiah Johnson and had Georgia up at the top of that list. Definitely a guy I think will be a major consideration there. There's been a lot of offers really go out into DBs here in the last little bit. So I don't know that they've necessarily got a guy just circled. Damon Harmon's a kid that wants to visit. I spoke to him out of Maryland or out of Virginia. Dejan Warren, the JUCO kid out of Lackawanna Community College. Kahari G is a kid in state. Kamar Wilcoxon. Yeah, Jaden Slocum and Kamar Wilcoxon at that safety spot. Donovan McMillan just picked up his offer. I think that they've got a lot of options there, really, and a lot of high level guys too.
But which ones are they taking?
If you get a chance to land Tony Grimes and Nyland Green in the same class, I mean and plus David Daniel and James Williams, I'd be hard pressed to just not stop right there. I mean,
yeah, sure.
That's 4 studs. I mean, so
I like Isaiah Johnson or I think Wilcoxon for the last spot. I think Kamar Wilcoxon's a guy that Georgia fans are going to have to watch throughout. I just got a feeling he ends up in Athens in the end.
Well, that brings up the question from Tyler Clemens on Twitter. He says, Radi, do you see us as the favorite to land 5-star cornerback Tony Grimes on signing day? You guys thoughts on
right now? Yes, I do. I mean, I feel pretty good about where Georgia stands with Grimes as of today. Signing day is quite a ways off, so
which signing day?
Well, who knows what signing day we'll have this year. But it's a ways off. I do feel good about Georgia's position with Grimes. I think that they should be considered the clubhouse leader right now.
Yeah. I recently submitted a forecast too, so it'd be interesting to go look at it.
What? Okay. We only have a few minutes left here, so I'm going to kind of go through some of these questions pretty quickly and mention one of our last sponsors. This comes from Georgia Dog 23847 on the board. He says, how many 5-stars, speaking of 5-star Tony Grimes, will UGA end up with in the 2021 class? And who do you think they'll be? I mean, if we knew the answer to that, it would be awesome. But, I mean, give me some names that you think that Georgia can land in this class 5 stars. I mean, you already have one.
It's a little light, though. That's the thing right now is, I mean, you still got to determine. You're sitting right now, I think, at 25 stars for the class or right around there. So just first glance looking at it, Amarius Mims, feel good about Georgia there. Mason Smith is, I guess, possible.
James Williams.
James Williams, Tony Grimes. Actually, right now we've got 14. We've got 14 5-stars. So I'm giving you probably 3 right now with a possibility of a 4th. But then you'll continue to see this list expand with the 5-star guys. And with that being the case, I think you'll probably see, another maybe up to 5. That seems reasonable, did I?
If they can land a guy like Mario Williams, if they can land, Barrett Carter, those are 2 possible names that could end up at 5-star status before it's all over with. So, I mean, I think by the end of the class, they'll be pushing 4 or 5 again, just like they're always at. But
remember, getting 2 in a class was monumental 7 years ago, and now we're talking 3, 4, 5, and 3 would be considered a down year. What Kirby's done on the recruiting trail is just mind-boggling.
Well, the difference is, though, that of the 25 5-stars, a quarter of them go to Georgia, a quarter go to Clemson, a quarter go to Alabama, and a quarter go to Ohio State. They're just not as spread out as evenly anymore.
That's very true.
It's only because of the Bama bump, too.
All right, I'm kicking you off the staff. I'm salting your yard. I'm going to key your car with Bama bump on the side of it. Now I got to fire myself. Crap, I said it too.
You did.
I want to give a big shout out to our friends at Academy Brewing Company and Your Pie. I want to mention them in the same breath because they're both doing fantastic work. I know that some of the Your Pie franchisees have been taking care of local hospitals and local first responders. They've been doing a great job catering to those people, saying, look, we appreciate what you're doing. Here's a ton of pizzas. They've been dropping those off. Of course, Academy Brewing Company has been taking care of the kids in the Athens community. They've been taking care of the service industry people with free meals. They have done a ton of fundraising to help other companies stay in business and to keep the food pantry stocked. They have done a great job. Plus, in the middle of all this, they are creating great beers. Every time I go to Academia Brewing Company's Facebook page, they've got a new beer being introduced, and big shout out to them for all the work they've done. And again, the folks at Your Pie, they're Georgia people. The founders went to Georgia. They were on their honeymoon when they decided to come up with it. When they came up with the concept, Drew, French, and Natalie, they are just the biggest Georgia fans in the world. But they've done charity work for years, long before they became as successful as they are. They were doing charity works and percentage nights when they only had the one store. Now they're over 70 stores. And that same philosophy has permeated through all their franchisees. So if you get a chance and you want to, if you're tired of eating the same old stuff, you cannot get better food than if you go to the Your Pies, go online, use the app to order your food, tell them when you want it. They will walk it out to your car. I've been there. I've been using them during the shutdown. The food is fantastic. It is as clean as possible. They have the no-touch delivery service. So a big shout out to Your Pie and Academia Brewing Company, both who are doing great work sponsoring the people in their local community, keeping them fed, taking care of them, and trying to help out during a really rough time. So
whenever Your Pie opens a new store, they do a dine and donate, is what they call it, to where as the employees are kind of getting those first couple days of like training down for sure of what they're doing, the food that gets made is donated to a charity partner. And then there's some cash donation that goes with that too. So anytime you see a new store opening, that's helping that local community.
I'm just saying.
Lightning round question. We got draft on Thursday. Everybody over under 1.5 Georgia players taken in round 1.
Under.
Trent?
Yeah, I'll take under.
I think I'm gonna go with the under too.
I think it's Andrew Thomas, and my hotter take is I think Isaiah Wilson goes before DeAndre Swift.
Ooh.
I actually would agree with that.
I think Swift's got a chance. I think he's got the guy he is the guy that's got the chance to kind of sneak in the back end of that first round. I can see that.
I just don't think that the NFL values running backs that much in the first round. That's just my take. Hang on. There was another question. Damn, where'd it go? Bugs me. Billy Baru asked, Jacob Eason over under in the pick of the draft, 45.5. Does he go before 45, after 45.5? Where does Jacob Eason go?
I'll say before.
I'll take the after on that. I think that, but not much. I think that puts him, that's like what, middle of the second round, roughly. It would be 45. So I think he is a second round guy, just maybe not top of the rung on that.
I'll go after. Yeah, I'll go after as well.
I'll say over. Yeah.
I just, any team that drafts Jordan Love above Jacob Eason, I just don't see it. Like I don't see why that would happen. And people are saying Jordan Love is a late first rounder.
Well, makes sense.
He's got that unknown, man. It's exciting. Yeah. Mysterious.
Yeah, sometimes the less you know about a kid, the more appealing. Again,
yes.
You got to do that homework, and those scouts have not been able to do as much as they normally do. Because trust me, they like to see these kids in person. They like to see them throw, and they can't. And my phone has blown up with questions from scout friends of mine about players that we've covered in high school, that we covered in college. Because they didn't get to do pro days, they didn't get to have them come in and do their work. Anyway, we know we got to break up for now. Dayne actually has work to do. The rest of us can go back to the stuff at UGAsports.com. Ton of stuff.
Back to drinking, finally.
Yeah. So if you get a chance, swing by UGAsports.com. If you want to read all our stuff for free, you can do that. Just type in code UGA free 2020. UGA free 2020, and you can read all the stuff at UGA Sports for free until July 1st. A big shout out to Classic City Eats on Baxter, Athens Ford, Aaron Overhead Doors, Your Pie Academia Brewing Company. Of course, 365 Game Day for letting us put this onto their webpage, and our friends at 11 Line who are doing a great job covering all the coronavirus stuff. So shout out to them. We will be back next Tuesday at noon. We will talk to you later.